Good evening. When I was in college several years ago, I was a ballroom dancing instructor. You know, when I told this story to the college students like a year ago, they all started laughing. And I was like, what's funny? But I was a ballroom dancing instructor, and I can remember one night as I was closing up at the end of the evening, walking out to my car. It was in the middle of January, and it was absolutely freezing. So I quickly ran to my car, and I put the key into the door to unlock it, and that key would not unlock the door. And I realized that the locks had gotten frozen. That's how cold it must have been. And so after struggling I was in a parking lot with a shopping center with stores all around me. After struggling with this lock, and trying my best to turn it, and on both sides, both the locks were not opening, I finally decided to call my roommate at the time, who came and picked me up, and I said, look, my locks are frozen. Can you please take me to Walmart? I need to get some de-icer. So my roommate takes me to Walmart. I'm searching everywhere for it. They don't have de-icer. They have to get engine de-icer. And finally, after a long period of time, get back to the car. And I'm like, okay, finally. So I take the key and the engine de-icer, and I'm spraying it in the lock, and I'm putting it in, and I'm struggling, and that lock still won't open. It's still frozen. And so I just get frustrated after several minutes of doing this. I throw the can on the ground. I'm annoyed beyond imagine. And I call my roommate back, and I said, can you come pick me up? My roommate had already left to go back home because I cannot get in my car. And so we're driving back to the house, and I think to myself, I had a hatchback at the time, one of those doors in the back. So I was like, turn around, I'm going to try one more time. So we turn around, go back to the parking lot, and I open the back of the car. It opens, and this relief just comes over me. And so I have to crawl through the back of the car, and I fall down into the back seat, and I crawl over the middle, and I fall down into the driver's seat, and I grab my keys, and I'm ready to go. And I look down at the door, and I realize, this is not my car. I had broken into, it looked like my car. Everything about it on the outside looked like my car, but it wasn't my car. And so I panic, and instead of like a normal person, right, opening the door and getting out, I decide to go back through the way I came because I'm in a panic. I'm like, someone's watching me break into the car. The police are on the way. So I crawl back over, fall into the back seat. My shoe comes off as I fall out of the back of the car, and I'm on the concrete. Get up, grab my shoe, and I shut the car, and I turn my head like this, and 2 aisles over, my car is sitting right there. Brothers and sisters, that day I felt very foolish. I felt very foolish because I had wasted my time and my energy and my money accomplishing something that in the end was a deception, was a counterfeit. Had I only looked 2 aisles over, I would have seen my car literally right in front of my eyes. But I was so stuck in my own head, so focused on the problem, the task at hand, that I couldn't see it. In today's first reading, I was reminded of that story. Moses is speaking to God's chosen people. He's speaking to them, and they were just as foolish. I spent 2 or 3 hours trying to get into a car that wasn't mine. The Israelites spent 40 years trying to get to a promised land, a trip that should have taken them, can anyone guess? About 11 days. They spent 40 years wandering around looking and searching for something. But as Moses reminded them in today's first reading, they were looking in the wrong place. Moses said to the people, if only you would hear the voice of the Lord your God and keep his commandments and statutes. Return to the Lord with all your heart and all your soul. This command is not too mysterious and remote for you. It's not up in the sky. It's not across the sea. No, it's something very near to you, already in your mouths and in your hearts. You have only to carry it out. You see, God's people weren't really searching for the promised land. God's people were searching for happiness, fulfillment. They were searching for purpose, freedom. But they were so focused on themselves and their own trials and suffering that they failed to see that the key to their happiness and fulfillment, the key to their purpose and their freedom, was right in front of them. It was inside of them, in their hearts, in their mouths. God had not hidden it from them. Open your eyes, says Moses. Open your eyes. And in today's gospel, Jesus is even more blatant. He breaks it down and makes it really clear as this wise and learned scribe approaches him from the crowd and asks him, "What is it? What's the secret to eternal life? What do I have to do to gain it? What must I do?" And Jesus reminds him that he already knows. After all, this man was a scholar of the law. And so Jesus asks him, "What does the law say?" Love your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. Love your neighbor, love your God. "Well, who is my neighbor?" the man asked, trying to justify himself. Thank goodness we never try to justify our actions, right? We justify ourselves all the time. As human beings, we're so good at finding reasons why we shouldn't do something. We're so good at making excuses. At least I know I am. The scribe was no different. He knew the truth. He knew it. He had studied it his whole life. He had literally just recited it in front of Jesus Christ himself. But brothers and sisters, there's a big difference between knowing and doing. And Jesus saw right through him as he patiently explained the parable of the Good Samaritan that we heard in the gospel today. And this educated scholar of the law soon realized that he was the priest in the story. He was the Levite. He was the one who went to temple faithfully. He was the one who was dutiful in the practice of his faith. He was the one that studied God's law extensively, took it very seriously, and he was the one that kept on walking by. Too wrapped up in himself to open his eyes and see the truth of what God had put right in front of him. Who is my neighbor? Who is my neighbor? Who is the one stripped of their dignity, beaten down by others, broken and in need? Moses said, "It's near to you. It's not up in the sky. It's not across the sea. It's right here. God is right here. Christ is right here." Friends, the homeless man is right here in our backyard. The immigrant family is right here. The single mom is right here. The traumatized, the hopeless, the hungry, the lonely, they're all right here next to us, right outside those doors. They're all right here. Let us ask ourselves, who am I in the parable? Who am I in the parable? And maybe the next time God puts someone on our path that's hurting, we won't just keep walking. We know the commandment. We know the law. Like Moses said, we need only to carry it out.